Yeah. Oh,
Good
wow.
afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us once again on Saturday for our weekly episode of the African Reform Movement channel and our different subjects. As always, I'm your host, Uche, and we have with us Dr. Nee. Welcome if you are joining us for the very first time. Host Uche, and we have with us Dr. Nee. Yes. Welcome if you are joining us for the very I can hear reverb there, Dr. Nee. There's something you got on.
That's all right. You go on.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so as I said, if you're joining us for the first time, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Dr. Nee is a very illustrious writer, and he's got a number of platforms that he writes things on. So these are his handles here, and these are platforms that he's on. As I always say, these can be found in the description box below this video, so don't worry if you don't have the time to write everything down now. Also, Dr. Nee has written a number of books: Weep Not Africa, The Fifth Republic, Tete Kwashi, The Star to Follow, to name but three. They can be purchased at his Book Nook site. Okay, and I would advise you to do that. If you're new to Dr. Nee, you're new to his politics and the way he thinks and why he thinks the way he thinks, I think it'd be very beneficial for you to get these books so you can track with him and understand where he's coming from. Okay? So today, the topic is taxation without tears. Taxation without tears. I'm looking forward to this one because I'm interested to see his particular perspective on taxation. So, Dr. Nee, as always, welcome. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Uche. And good morning to all those who have found time to be with us today. We are talking about one of the most important things in a modern economy, taxation. They say that without taxation, there is no government. I'll probably say without taxation, there is no state. Taxation is very important. Today, we're going to look at the key issues in taxation and how it should be redone in Ghana to bring us into the 21st century. Taxation is compulsory levies government impose on individuals and entities. So basically, it's compulsory and it's a levy that government imposes on individuals and other entities. Next slide, please. Next slide. Types of taxation or classes of taxation. We have direct and indirect. The main direct tax is personal income tax, and the main indirect tax is goods and sales tax, as we call it in Australia, or VAT, value added tax, as it's called in Ghana and other countries. I'm not going to go into details in the class because we all know the two broad classes. All right, the next slide, please. The role of taxation in the economy. We are talking about the percentage of GDP, which is taxation, and the percentage of total revenue, which is from taxation. Let me put it this way. Australia, the average percentage of GDP, which is taxation, or it's about 24%. 16% is collected at the federal level, and 8% is collected at the state and local level. But last year, the share of GDP, which was taxation, rose from 24 to 28.7%. And it's not because of more tax to individuals, but because of more tax in the mining industry. The price of iron ore and coal went so high that government received more tax from iron ore and coal to the point of probably I forgot the figure, but billions. Okay, so this year the share of GDP, which is taxation, is 28.7%. The figure is $593.7 billion, almost $600 billion in tax revenue, or in total revenue, actually. Now, then the percentage of tax of total revenue. In Australia last year, total revenue, 92% of total revenue came from tax. Only 8% came from non-tax revenue. And you know what non-tax revenue is, right? Non-tax revenue is bond issues, government investment, government shares in companies, and state-owned enterprises profits. So these profits and investment government has made, when they come, they are non-tax profits. They are non-tax revenue. But apart from that, and this contribute only 8%. The remaining 92% of taxes in Australia are from tax. 92% of revenue from tax, 8% from non-tax revenue. I'm not too sure about the figures in Ghana, but we'll talk a little bit about this for us to have an idea what a modern economy should look like. Now, in Australia, the largest source of income to the government is personal income tax. Personal income tax last year was about 47, 48% of total government revenue. 48%. Now, 18% came from companies, corporate taxes. So between the two of them, 48 and 18, that is 66. The two of them is 2/3 of all government revenue. So when you have an economy where, and this is because an average of 96% of eligible workers are working in Australia. At the moment, the unemployment is 3.5, but we can make it average of 4. So it means 96% are working. So 96% are eligible to be taxpayers. And that is why you can have 47, 48, or even up to 50%. In America, it's about 50% of all government revenue coming from personal income tax. We'll talk about this again down the line. 18% from GST. No. 18% from corporate taxes. 13 or 14% from GST or VAT, as you call it in Ghana. Then 9% from excise and customs. Only 9% from excise and customs. And then 8% from non-taxable revenue. 2/3 of all government revenue in Australia is from personal income tax and corporate taxes. For Ghana, percentage of GDP which is taxed is about 13%. It's even lower than the 16 or so percent for Sub-Saharan Africa. And there's a reason for that. People will have to work before they can be taxed. So if unemployment is so high, then for sure, tax collection will be low as a percentage of GDP. And not only that, like I said, in Australia, about 2/3 of tax is collected at the federal level and 1/3 is collected at the state level. So even the collection mechanism is also important. A federal system is able to collect better than a unit system that we have in Ghana. All right, next slide. Principles. There are many principles. There are many principles of taxation. The first principle, cardinal principle, that it should be affordable. Taxation should be affordable, because if it's not affordable, it distorts the market. Taxation should be affordable. You cannot tax somebody what the person cannot pay. It becomes punitive and people will avoid and evade it. In the end, you get less than what you have otherwise gotten if it was affordable. So that's the affordability principle. The next major principle is benefits. People must see the benefit of the taxes they pay, because then it brings in a positive feedback sentiment. When people do not see the benefit of the tax they pay, then there's a problem. You are breaching a major principle of taxation. And it should be fair. Taxation should be fair. Now, fairness is different from affordable. The fact that somebody can afford to pay more doesn't mean that you must unfairly tax the person. Because when you do that, what you do is that you create a disincentive for more work. So taxation should be fair. In Australia, there's something called bracket creeping. When people believe that if they work harder, they will earn more, and their tax bracket will shift from 30%, they'll go into 35 or 40%, then they will work less because they don't want to move into a higher tax bracket. We call it bracket creeping. And that is why tax should be fair. Otherwise, it becomes a disincentive for more work. Let me tell you one thing that happened in the history of Ghana. Why taxation should be fair. It was because of tax that eventually led to the overthrow of Kwame Nkrumah. Before the 1954 elections, Kwame Nkrumah and Gbedeman promised cocoa farmers that if they won the elections, they were going to float the price of cocoa on the world market, so that whatever the price of the cocoa on the world market would be the basis for their producers' price. And because of that, out of the 21 seats in Ashanti, which was then producing 60% of Ghana cocoa, because of that, 18 out of the 121 constituencies in Ashanti voted for the CPP, because they believed that the colonial system where their cocoa price was fixed, which was about 30% of what was on the world market, will be done with, and now they'll get their money according to the price on the world market. Just after the election, a month after the election, Gbedeman went to Parliament and brought the Cocoa Whatever Act. And in the act, they decided that they were going to fix the cocoa price, or to continue the status quo of a fixed cocoa price, and they went back on their word before the elections. And even worse, they introduced export duty of 10%. So that if you produce the cocoa and the government exports the cocoa for you, you'll be paid about 30% the price of cocoa in the world market. And on top of that, you pay export duty of 10%. Now, people must understand this. In the 1954 elections, Buzier's party, Ghana Congress Party, won only one seat out of 104. There was no opposition in Ashanti. Buzier won one seat for himself in Winchi. Even that, he won by only 18 votes. But when Gbedeman went to Parliament to change their promise to the cocoa farmers, there was an uproar in Ashanti. And that was how Baafa Koto, the chief linguist of Asantehene, formed the National Liberation Movement. He was able to ride on the anger of farmers to form a formidable opposition of Nkrumah in Ashanti. Those who have read my article, The Rise and Fall of Nkrumah in Ashanti, you know that I made this point. The NLM was formed because of campaign promise that Nkrumah and Gbedema made that they failed to fulfill. And it got to do with tax. And that's what happens when a tax system is not fair. You cannot decide that you are going to tax one part of the economy separately from the rest. I mean, there will be a complete war in Australia if government decides that they're going to tax wheat farmers separately and differently from any other business. You can't do that. So here, they were taxing cocoa farmers twice. They were taxing them almost 70% for their produce on the world market, because they only paid about 30% of world market price. And then on top of that, they want to tax them for export duty too. That was what brought the NLM into being. And the next elections in 1956, 18 seats in Ashanti was halved to 9 seats, and NLM took 12 seats. That was the end of Nkrumah in Ashanti. And that NLM today has morphed itself into what you know as MPP. There was no opposition. There was only one seat for Buzier's party, the Ghana Congress Party, in the 1954 parliament. But because of unfairness, Bafagoto was able to govern the grievance of farmers who felt cheated and deceived into forming NLM. And today, its descendant is ruling Ghana, and CPP is dead. Be careful with unfair taxation. Not only that, certainty. Taxation. Tax must be certain. You cannot run a tax system arbitrarily. Like in the middle of 2017, when Akufo-Addo died, there was no money to start the SHS. Then they came with luxury car tax arbitrarily. In the middle of nowhere. They never told anybody that they were going to impose a tax to pay for SHS. Never heard of. When they were going for the 2020 elections, they never told anybody that they were going to impose a tax called e-levy. Arbitrary. They are breaching every single thing in the book. For a tax to be successful, or for a good tax system, it must be certainty is a great criterion. How much you pay, when you pay, should be certain and clear to everybody. It's important for the taxpayer, it's important for government, because government can then work on the basis of that this amount is going to come. The next principle is simple and transparent. I know the tax I pay in Australia. Every single tax. They even come with explanatory notes. There's no surprise tax. You go to you send a complaint to Ghana, and you go to Tema Harbour to clear your goods. You see ECOWAS levy there, get fund, this, that, complex, nobody understands, nobody tells you why. I mean, it's an absolute disaster. It's simple, it's not transparent. You can go there and the tax, your duty can change in 24 hours. A good tax system should be simple and transparent. You must know what you are paying and why you are paying it. a good tax system must be efficient. The efficient means that the cost of collecting the tax must not be more than the tax collected. You must develop a system that is efficient so that you can catch all those who are supposed to pay the tax, And you must do so at or in a cost-efficient way. And it must be effective. It must be effective. These are the core principles in taxation, good taxation. And you see why this is important. Unfortunately, we don't have even one of these 7 principles operating in Ghana. We don't have even one of these principles operating in Ghana. The tax is not affordable, so it leads to something else. The benefits of the tax are not seen by the people, so people are or do everything possible to avoid and evade tax. The tax system is not fair. Now, when it comes to fairness, you see, I told you that personal income tax is about 50% of all government revenue in Australia. Do you know what? The top 5%, who earn salaries, they pay 60% of all income tax. The top 5% pay 60% of all income tax in Australia. What it means is that the top 5% contributes 30% of all government revenue. Only 5%. Because it is fair and they can afford it. The top 5%, they pay 50%, 60% of all tax revenue in Australia. And that means they pay how much? 30% of all government revenue. And I'm one of them. My marginal tax is 45% in $1. But I know it's fair. Oh my God, my battery is low. I know it's fair. Top 5%, they pay 30% of all government revenue in Australia. In Ghana, according to your finance minister, 60,000 of doctors, accountants, lawyers do not pay tax. Those who are supposed to form the top 5% and to pay 30% or to contribute 30% of all government revenue, they are not paying anything. It is not fair. And government solution to that is to impose an e-levy, an indirect tax on those their income tax. And those higher who are not supposed to pay any tax at all, because in Australia, if you earn less than $18,200 a year, you don't pay any tax. That is fair, because they fall in the lower tax income group. And that's what you call fairness. Those who earn more than 180,000, they pay 45% tax in every dollar.
Those who earn less than 18,200, they don't pay any tax at all. The top 5% who earn more than $180,000, they pay 60% of all income tax in Australia. And therefore, they pay about 30%, or they contribute about 30% of all government revenue. That's what we call fairness. What is the situation like in Ghana? Next slide. Purpose of tax. How many are there? Averaging 6, right? There may be more or whatever. But the number one is to raise revenue. Okay. Like I told you, 92% of government revenue in Australia is from tax. 8% is non-tax revenue. Without tax, there's no government. And the tax is fair. And it's affordable. And it's certain. And the collection system is efficient and effective. And these are the principles. And the benefits are there for everybody to see. What about Ghana? Revenue. But it's not only revenue. Taxation is used to modify consumption. So we have what they call the sin tax. Taxation on alcohol and smoking. Government can increase the tax to force people to stop smoking and drinking. So you can use tax to modify consumption. And also to protect home industry. So if you don't want people, or if you want rice farmers to be patronized by Ghanaians, then we can impose heavy tariff on imported rice. If you want to grow the flour industry in Ghana, then you can impose heavy tax on imported flour. Whatever you want to protect in Ghana, you can impose heavy tax on the imported version. So one of the purposes of taxation is to protect home industry. Obviously, to provide services and infrastructure, as we already know. That's one of the purposes. And to run the government bureaucracy. What do we see? The other is a factor of production. This is one thing that most people do not understand. Let me give you a clear. So last year, at the end of last year, the exchange rate of the dollar to the cedi was 6. Average of last year was probably 5.5. We probably started around 5, we ended at 6. So let's say the average is 5.5. So what it means is this. If you imported stuff to Ghana and your duty was $10,000 and it's converted to you in cedis in the middle of Ghana, in the middle of last year or across last year, you're going to pay 55,000, right? Because it's 10,000 times 5.5. Or even let's say at the end of last year, you're going to pay 60,000, 10,000 times 6 cedis to the dollar. Okay. So now you clears your thing, you pay 60,000. Today, if you bring the same thing to Tema, you are going to pay minimum 90,000 because the dollar is 9 to the cedi or even more. But let's say 9. You pay 90,000. So if what you have brought to Tema is an input to your production, then the import duty becomes an input duty. It becomes a tax on an input of your production base. The material that we're taught in school, that there are 3 factors of production: land, labor, and capital. I'm telling you that there is a 4th one. and that is import duty. It imposes a financial burden on manufacturing because the cedi is weak. So what you paid 60,000 for in terms of duty, you're going to pay 90,000 today. Now, the 30,000 difference is either passed on to customers or you lose that in profit. Well, the disastrous end is that if you cannot do any of the two, then your business will close. And then what happens? People become unemployed, and therefore they pay no personal income tax. In the end, the government loses. You see, the problem we have is that these guys don't understand that the economy has got many moving parts. And that is what we call economic management. You look at the effect of touching one part on the other parts. If you do not do that, you realize that you take from here and you lose more from there. If a business cannot handle the increase in import duty, not because of the rates haven't changed, but the exchange, not the import duty rate or the numerous levies they put on it, those remain the same. But because the cedi exchange rate has changed and government doesn't know how to handle that, the overall import duty increase because all these levies and whatever are calculated in dollars and then they are converted into cedis. So as the cedi becomes weaker, the import duty increases. So you are imposing new financial burden on those who use things from the port as part of their manufacturing business or even their retail business. Because whatever passes through there, value increases as the import duty increases as the cedi depreciates. Got to understand that. The end result is closure of businesses, and loss in personal income tax, which is supposed to give Ghana government 92%, 47% or 50% of its total revenue. Personal income tax is lost because government decides to squeeze at the ports. We don't understand it. Anyway, taxation therefore becomes a factor of tax if it's not handled very well. Okay. And the last one is income redistribution. I've spoken about it already. Because you decide that in the bid to be fair, you are not going to tax the person who earns 50,000 the same way as you tax the person who earns 200,000. So you use tax to bridge inequality. The person who gets 50,000 pays less tax than the person who pays 200,000. That is one of the purposes of taxation. And that's why I support progressive taxation. I personally don't like proportional taxation because it taxes everybody at the same percentage. Because you see, if somebody has 100 cedis and you tax the person 10%, the person loses 10 cedis. If somebody has $1,000 or 1,000 cedis and you tax the person 10%, yes, the person loses 100 cedis, but the value of the 10 cedis is more to the person who owns or who earns 100 cedis than 100 cedis is the person who earns 1,000 cedis. The person who earns 1,000 has got 900 to play with, and the person who has 100 has got only 90 to play with. So use tax to bridge the gap. As you know, the motto of ARM is bridging the gap. So I'm for progressive taxation. I pay 45% in the dollar. My daughter earns much less, so she pays less in a dollar. Maybe, I don't know, maybe 20% or whatever, I don't know. And that is how we can all go to the same market, and the state tries to bridge the gap, the inequality gap. So that's one of the purposes of taxation. Okay. Next slide, please. What is to be done? We need a new tax regime. An absolutely new tax regime. In fact, we need a new tax office. And I'm telling the MPP, it's so obvious that you have not the faintest idea about taxation and how the different parts of the tax system, what they should contribute to the revenue. I will tell them this. They should just pay me for my 1 month salary here, income here, and I'll write a completely new tax policy for them. Not because I love MPP, definitely not. It's a disaster. But you see, when Ghana defaults on its loans and stuff like that, it's not Akufo-Addo who has defaulted. It's not MPP government who has defaulted. It's not the MPP party that has defaulted. It is Ghana that has defaulted, or that will be said to have defaulted. That is my country. And the tag is on me, just as it's on you or anybody for that matter. So I can help them to write a new tax policy. How much of our tax should come from personal income tax? How much of it should come from corporate tax? How much of it should come from VAT taxes? How much of it should come from excise and customs? And how much should come from non-tax revenue? And how we are going to get the money from these various branches. Very important. Because if you can do that properly, well, there'll be no issue about things called e-levy, arbitrary taxation, brought in the middle of nobody knows anything, because they're just doing anything. They don't understand the principles. Just take whatever from customs at the ports. About 14 different taxes. Because all we want is you see, because this is what we do in Ghana. We let the tax chase expenditure. That's the worst way of managing taxation. The expenditure must chase tax. What I'm saying is this. So you check all your revenue and you have X amount of cedis as your total revenue. That is what you are going to base your expenditure on. The expenditure must chase the revenue. But in Ghana, we calculate the expenditure. Then we decide to tax people to fund it. So it's always not affordable. And it's always not fair. And it's always not certain. Because if along the line realize that we're not getting the money we think we will get, we bring another tax. It's not certain. And there are no benefits because we can't even meet the budget requirement. Because we decide to set the expenditure and tax people to meet the expenditure. It doesn't work like that. We get a tax and we fix the expenditure into the tax. That should be the philosophy. But 65 years, we haven't found that formula. 65 years, we haven't found that formula. We do the same thing. So we end up going to IMF. Because when the revenue falls short of the expenditure, then there's a deficit. And then we go to IMF. Or we print money. And the money, we print money, increase money supply. And the city crashes, like it's crashing now. And then we go to the reserves, to go and take from the reserves to buffer the city. the reserves dwindles. There is panic on the market. People start withdrawing their money because they don't trust the system. Then the vicious cycle is evoked. Expenditure must chase revenue and not the other way around. I can write a new tax policy for them. Actually, I've done a bit in my book. Would not have. But I'm going to write a completely new one, looking at our present problem as a basis of refurbishing what I did in 2016. One, and the next thing, what's to be done right now, is look at import duty. It's a big chunk of our tax revenue. Look at import duty. It's a big chunk of our tax revenue. What I'm saying, I've said it before, and I'm saying it again. At the port, fix the dollar. So that if somebody paid 55,000 for a 10,000 import duty, $10,000 import duty, the person must pay the same this year. When that happens, then you reduce the effect of the weak CD on manufacturing and on retail. Then people will be able to import more. You may increase your turnover, and then in the process, even get more tax receipts than it is now. As it is now, nobody is bringing anything because you may ship something from Australia when the CD was 7 or 8, whatever, to the dollar. By the time you get to Ghana, it's going to be 10. You'll not be able to even clear your things. Fix the dollar at the ports. I call it sandbagging. The CD is being flooded. And when floods come, you raise a standard against them. You sandbag. Do that, and you'll be able to get revenue of 2021 for 2022. Otherwise, you will not even get the revenue you got for 2021 for 2022. And what's going to happen is that your deficit is going to be wider, and you'll be forced to print more CDs, and your CD will fall further. And you'll be forced to even keep the little investment you have, you'll be forced to raise interest rates. Because for people to keep their money with you, it means that they must have high returns on the money that they've invested in you. Because if they don't do that, by the time their money matures, the same money cannot buy the same dollars it bought or it came with in the beginning because the CD is so weak. So you must keep increasing the interest rate to keep customers happy. And you know what that happens? You destroy home industry. Because nobody is going to borrow money at 35% from bank to do any business in Ghana. You can pay back. So like I said, the economy has many moving parts. You got to be very careful how you play it. And that's what is called economic management, which is very different from economic theory, which Baumia seems to have some ideas. Very different. And that's why they are stuck, because they don't know how to manage the economy. They don't know how to move this way to give way to this other thing. All they know is impose a tax. They are panicking. Oh, where the money will come. But tax modifies behavior. Tax modifies consumption. To think that you impose a tax and people will consume the same way they used to consume before you impose the tax means you don't understand human behavior. The moment you impose a tax, people will detour. They will find a way around it. And this brings the issue of bribery. When people are prepared to pay 20 cedis for import duty, and you impose a duty of 100 cedis, they'll go and bribe somebody with the 20 cedis. You have to understand, bribe is also a market force. Bribe is a market force that prospers when taxation and other things are unfair and they are unaffordable. To reduce taxes, to reduce bribery, you got to make your taxes there fair. You got to make your taxes there affordable. If I'm writing a tax policy with people and we are 10 of them there, and I bring a tax regime, I'll ask them, look, how many of you will truly obey this tax regime? If 4 of them tell me they will genuinely do it, I know it's a wrong tax regime. If 8 of them tell me they will genuinely do it, I know it's a good tax regime. Because the good tax regime is what we are prepared to pay. Otherwise, they will go and give bribe. Bribe is a market force. You can say whatever you want to say about it, but bribe is a market force. When people do not believe that what they are being asked to pay is reasonable, is fair, is affordable, they will go and pay bribe. And that's why, I believe that in Ghana, per workforce, custom officers have built more houses than any group of workers in Ghana. We all know that. Because money that should come to government goes to them. Your government taxation system is unreasonable and it's unfair. You see, people do not understand. There's something we call the Gaussian curve or normal distribution curve. Those who did a bit of mathematics will understand what I'm saying. In a population of 100, 10% will always do the right thing regardless. 10% will always do the wrong thing regardless. Policies are to influence the middle 80% for them to move to doing the right thing. That's what policy is about. So that the middle 80%, very much like your fingers, the top 10% who will always do the right thing is the thumb. The bottom 10% who always do the wrong thing is the little finger. And the 3 fingers in the center, they are the ones that policies are to sway one way or the other. If policies are unfair and they are not affordable, most of them will sway to the last 10 who will do the wrong thing. If policies are good, majority of them will sway to the thumb direction, to the direction where people will do the right thing. It's as simple as that. It's basic common sense. So you always have to gauge the people's mood, what they are prepared to make if they pay. Because now government projections in the budget in less than 3 months or 3 months time, new budget to be read. If these people are still in government, all their projections will be proved to be wrong. Good tax system convert majority of the middle 80% towards the top 10%. And that's the philosophy of how to write a new tax regime. I'm saying again, the imports duty, custom and excise in Australia is only 9%. In Ghana, I don't know, but it could be more than 20% because we have a very weak personal income tax. Government must look at it again and fix the city to the dollar in order to try and get what they got last year. Otherwise, the revenue there will be shocking. And our deficit will increase and we'll print more money. And our city will nosedive. And if you are not careful, we will default. And we'll become like Sri Lanka. And everybody will run up. taxation is not about pickpocketing. It's about reducing the goodness in the citizenry for them to contribute to the running of the state, to the provision of services, and to the building of infrastructure. They must see the benefits, but it must be affordable and it must be fair to Umanyaba.
Thank you for that, Dr. Nee. I hope that was clear to all of you. Like I said, Dr. Nee has a number of social media handles. So if anything, it wasn't clear, you might be able to pick it up from social media platforms to see if he's mentioned that again there. Alternatively, you can post questions underneath this particular live stream and we can answer them right now. So let's go. Okay. Sheikha said a good, fair taxation regime is a key to consistent government revenue. The existing system is unreasonable and fosters corruption, hence loss of revenue to the state.
That is true. Absolutely true. The present system is the father of bribery. Bribery is a market force. It is a market principle. Every reasonable government tries to reduce it, to minimize it through good policies, good monetary policies, good fiscal policies. Otherwise, the rational man will avoid and, if necessary, evade unreasonable tax. It's as simple as that.
She also says, comment on why the government excessively taxes goods that they do not produce domestically.
Because they make taxation chase expenditure. Okay? They decide that they want to spend 200 billion. Not because we can afford that. Not because the economy can produce that. And once they decide that this is what we want to spend, then they have to look for the money. So then they start taxing everything to get that money, without thinking about the effect of taxation on the economy. One principle that I forgot is that tax should not distort the market. It should be neutral. So that's what they do. Their philosophy of a good economic management is that expenditure chases revenue. You get the revenue, and based on your revenue, you decide your expenditure. You cut your clothing according to the size of your material. We do it the other way around because we are dwarfs. Our feet are then upside opposite. That's why. When they say, oh, we want to spend this, then they have to look for where to get the money from. It should be the other way around. Me, my income a month is not much. So they should just come and give me 1 month's salary. I won't work and I write a complete tax policy for them. Cover every area with explanatory notes. They will get more than what they are getting now. But it will be affordable and it will be fair.
Okay.
It will be simple and it will be transparent. It will be collected efficiently and effectively. We'll first start with eco-federalism. Federal tax collection, state tax collection. They don't understand it. Any more questions?
Yeah. Kenneth has said, we simply do not trust his government. We do not have any proof that our hard-earned resources are being wisely used. Absolute zero transparency regarding government spending, etc.
That is true. You see, you cannot trust the government because the government itself is part of the people. Those in government come from among the people. Can you trust the people? You cannot expect the government to behave very, very differently from the people, from amongst whom they come. That's the problem. You have a problem. You have a huge problem. I don't even talk about the currency now. That will be another 20-hour discussion. But everything I said for last November has happened. Today, the dollar to the cedi is 9.6 or thereabouts. Yesterday, the cedi to the Australian dollar was 6.3 cedis. This morning, when I checked, it's gone to 6.6. I'm sure as I'm talking now, it's 7. This is a disaster. But I told you people it's going to happen. When you have budgeted that you're going to have a deficit of 36 billion, when in actual fact, you know it's 50 billion. But you write 36 billion to convince the outside world that you are fiscally disciplined and things like that, but you know you are lying. You have to print the 14 billion. And if you cannot find people to finance the 36 billion, the extra 36 billion, then you're going to print 50 billion. Now, when you print 50 billion, which is more than 10% of your GDP, you have destroyed your country. You see, people don't understand. I mean, people don't understand this basic principle. At the beginning of the year, our debt was about 50 billion US dollars. And we said to our GDP supposed to be 460 billion cedis. What people don't understand these days, the GDP is evaluated in cedis, but it's indexed in dollars. So if you have a GDP of 460 billion cedis and your cedi crashes to 10 cedis to the dollar, your GDP becomes 46 billion dollars. Now, when you have GDP of 46 billion dollars and your debt is 50 billion dollars, then your debt is more than your GDP. Your debt is more than everything that you own. Your GDP to debt ratio becomes more than 100%. You are going to default, right? You are going to default. Because if you sell all your things, you can't pay for your debt. That's how serious it is. You are going to default. It will be like a Sri Lanka.
Okay, got next question here. Where is the economic management team of NPP? I thought they had the men. So far, their approaches to boost tax revenues is not sustainable and has failed.
The people cannot even manage debt in terms of economic management. They can't even manage debt. They can't even manage debt. You see, let me be very honest here. I personally don't think the problem you're having is just incompetence. No, incompetence cannot explain it. There's massive corruption too. Incompetence cannot explain what is happening. I mean, they must know something. They've been to school. So I don't think it's just incompetent. There is massive corruption. It's unbelievable that if the cedi hits 10, if the dollar hits 10 cedis, our GDP will become $46 billion. Our debt is over 50 billion. Our GDP to debt ratio will be more than 100%. How do we talk about this? And we can pay. And we're going to pay back. Ghana government has gone back to IMF with an addendum. Now they want $3 billion bailout. And that is not free. It's a disaster. But I told you people, every single thing that has happened, I told you in November, from November. We need a new tax regime. We need a new tax regime based on Smithsonian economic principles. Those of you know Adam Smith. I bought his abridged book, Wealth of Nations. I think 2017 or so, I was coming to Ghana. I read a book on the plane. That's why I got the principles of taxation. We are joking. This 18th century man in Scotland. What he wrote then, we are not even doing it today. Those of you who are interested, yes. Go on and you find the book. He has a big book in an abridged form for your own education. What you wrote in the 1700s, we are not even doing it today. How do we think they are going to prosper? When we are fighting all good principles. Some people think it's politics as usual. Well, wait till you default on your law. Wait. So your cedi hits 10 to the dollar. Wait. So inflation hits 50% officially. I believe 50% already. But officially it's 31.7. Wait. So your interest rates soars to 30%. And nobody can borrow from the banks. And the banks collapse. Well, there's no business going on. Nobody is saving his money in the bank because you go and put 100 cedis there. In a week, the value of the 100 cedis becomes 90 cedis because the cedi are depreciated by 10%. In a month, it becomes 80%. 80 because it has depreciated by 20%. So the banks will collapse. It is not a joke. Even me, a physician, I seem to understand this a little bit. So I cannot accept that all those people there do not understand anything at all. What I think is that there is massive corruption going on. It's not just incompetence. They must understand something. That is happening. This disaster, this catastrophe. It's up to Ghanaians. But we are ready to write a new tax regime.
Okay, this is just one comment, it's not a question from Kenneth again, because let's sack the entire economic team. No need to reshuffle ministerial positions.
That's what should happen. The whole government must go.
Seems like it. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you to everybody who joined us today. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for letting other people know about this platform. We much appreciate it. As always, back same time, same place next week. But again, spread the word even further. Let more people come along. Let them know about Dr. Nee's social media platforms so I can see what he's saying. Let them know about his bookstore. Buy the books. Pick up on his philosophies and why he thinks the way he thinks. And then let's see where we are. Okay. Enjoy your weekend, and we will see you again next week. Take care then. Bye-bye. Bye, Dr. Nee.
Bye, Uche, and bye, Ken, and all those who have found time to be with me. Thank you very much, and may the God of Ghana bless you richly.